We'll call this Board of Weber County Commissioners to order, dated this 12th day of September 2017 at 10 o'clock. Welcome to everyone here in attendance. We appreciate you being here today. We'll start with a moment of silence, then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Jared Anderson, and then I will have the thought of the day. If you'll join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
All rise and please pledge allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've had an interesting last month or two. The thought that I would ask that we have in our minds, not only for today, but hopefully throughout the rest of the week and throughout our life, is reflecting upon how truly blessed we are as a people. As we look at the fire that we had last week and the impact it had on a small community, and the impact that the Storm Harvey had on the community in Houston, and the impact that we're presently feeling with the hurricane in Florida and surrounding states of Irma. Truly, we are blessed. And the blessing isn't property, it isn't things, it isn't sporting events, it isn't a one-loss record. The true value and the blessing is life. The one thing that we can point to in our personal tragedies that we had over the last week with the fire is that no one was injured and we had no loss of life. And truly, as we talked to those families, we looked in their eyes, we saw the pain of maybe losing things. There was a tremendous amount of joy in families as they were reunited at the D Event Center, that their children or their spouses or their grandparents or other relatives were not injured or killed. And we easily could have had loss of life. So my thought today is an urge of health and of those relationships. And it was reminded again to me and probably these commissioners as we dealt with that fire, and then as we watched Harvey and we've watched Irma come across the Panhandle into Florida and over that entire state, that truly it's about each other and it's about life. It's not about things. So thank you. Any thoughts, commissioners?
Well said.
Okay, we'll move on to consent items. Number 1, request for approval of warrants 1191 through 1196 and 420677 through 420815 in the amount of $605,291.02. Item number 2, request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $105,671.48. Item number 3, request for approval of minutes for the meeting held on September 5th, 2017. Number 4 is a request for approval of training reimbursement agreements by and between Weber County and the following: Norman McGregor, Justin Alder, Connor Johnson, Alicia Dalton, and Kyle Kennington. Any questions, commissioners? Seeing no questions, Ms. Ricky Hatch, would you go over our warrants and our PO?
Good morning. Yes. 18 purchase orders this week for $106,000. 1/3 of that amount, or $34,000, was for dispatch. That was primarily for a router upgrade and equipment for the building. 30%, or $32,000, was for the roads, and that was almost exclusively traffic paint. 15%, or $15,000, was for the health department, and it was computer equipment and brochures. 14%, or $14,000, was for the jail, and that was for inmate clothing. As far as checks, we issued 145 checks this week for $605,000. 21% of that amount, or $130,000, was for dispatch for the construction of their building. 18%, or $110,000, was for IT, and that was for phone service. 16% or $99,000 was road construction, and 13% or $80,000 was for the health department, and that was for nursing supplies.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or concerns about those items, commissioners? Hearing none, I'm open for a motion.
So move.
The consent items have been moved and seconded for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thank you very much. Move to action items. Commissioners, if we can move item number 2 to the end of the agenda for purposes of discussion and not as an action item. Is there any issues or concerns with doing that? Wonderful. So we'll move that item down. For purposes of following through with being able to follow the action items, we'll leave the numbering the same. Action item number 1, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Hales Engineering for an 1800 South and 3500 West four-way stop study. Mr. Anderson.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Jared.
This intersection, we've had design work done on this and construction work. The design group that did this work, they did also an analysis, traffic analysis. So the firm could do both the design of the road and a traffic analysis of the intersections and where the stop signs should be. They gave a recommendation. We weren't 100% on board, but we said, let's see how the traffic flows. So as we put up that recommendation at this intersection, we had a lot of complaints from residents, far too many, than what we do on typical intersections and how we put those stop signs in. To see what another traffic engineering firm might give a recommendation on, or see if what the residents are saying should. I'm guessing that this second firm might look at it and have another recommendation for us. So we just didn't want to have one opinion. We kind of wanted to get a second opinion to see if what we're doing is correct. So went through the procurement process. Hills Engineering was the low bid on that, and we're using them to evaluate that intersection for us.
Questions for Mr. Anderson? The only concern I have is, again, as soon as we have something that would rise to the level of serious injury and or loss of death, this engineering study will be what we, put it basically at the foundation of any litigation or liability. So I want to make sure we're not leading or directing them to a specific finding, because at the end of the day, the manual and the engineering study really is the only thing we have to really protect ourselves. So that's
I
my
agree.
concern.
Point of just so I'm up to speed, what did it cost to build the roundabout at Comby Road and Skyline?
That entire project, well, just the roundabout itself, because I know we did some work on Eastwood with storm drain.
Right.
I would have to get back with you on just the roundabout itself.
Pot shot it.
Ballpark, I don't know, around $1 million
So
for just
for-
that area.
So if there was a roundabout put in this area, it'd be about $1 million.
Yeah, depending on property acquisition and things like that.
All
But
right.
yes. Yep.
Any further discussion? Open for motion.
Move we approve the contract between Weber County and Hales Engineering for the purpose of looking at a traffic study, four-way intersection.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so Commissioner, are you saying that maybe that, something like that should be part of the study?
No,
Not really?
no, I just was wondering what, I think roundabouts function really well for a lot of areas, and my only point is I hear all the time, why don't they put a roundabout in there? Well, because at $1 million a piece,
I see what you mean.
we could spend $100 million in a heartbeat and put 100 of them in, I don't know that we have that. No, I do know. We don't have that kind of money.
Do not have that.
Good to know.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, it passes. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Anderson. Item number 2, again, has been moved to the end of the agenda. Item number 3, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the Utah Youth Rodeo Association for rodeo events to be held at the Golden Spike Event Center during the 2017-2018 season. Mr. Duncan Olson. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. So This really just deals with the rates for the Utah Youth Rodeo. There should be two different contracts, but they're both under the same one. One is specifically for the Golden Spike and the other the outdoor arena. Mainly because of weather, they both are used.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Olson specific to these contracts?
I'll just remind the audience, and this is a Utah Youth Rodeo is an organization or an association that started 24 years ago. And it's grown to be a very nice, not only just a nice piece of business, but our thoughts 24 years ago that if we started such a thing, that maybe some of our local youth who participate in this association would go on to do great things in college and professionally. And now, 24 years later, that's some of those names that we see at the NFR or we're familiar with and that are local. We have a higher percentage of locals doing well at the NFR than about any place else in the world. And so this is a great little farming ground, so to speak, for young talent. It's awesome. It would be a wonderful story, a sports story in and amongst itself if a sports writer were to get a hold of it and look for, you know, some of those people that have come out of here.
Right.
So with that, I would move that we have approval between Weber County and the Utah Youth Rodeo Association for the purpose of holding the 2017-2018 Utah Youth Rodeo season.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you. Item number 4, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Dominion Energy for construction and installation of gas lines for the youth detention facility. Kevin McLeod. Welcome, Kevin.
Morning, Commissioners. This would be a contract for Dominion Power or Energy to move or install the gas line that'll run to the sheriff's complex, and it will be hooked onto by the juvenile facility. But it actually is a new gas line to run to the sheriff's complex.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Time for this to move forward and be done, so I'll make a motion that we approve this contract.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second. Do I have any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Enjoy. Item number 5, request for approval to ratify a contract by and between Weber County and Even Stevens for the rental of Fort Beneventura Park for Give Stock September 8th through the 10th, 2017, hence the ratification.
Gentlemen, thank you. I apologize for this being a ratification. The event went very well. We had about 3,000 people attend. It was that's a lot for the park, but it's the first time we used the Observatory Park's new parking lot, fed people across the bridge in a little different manner than we had before. To be quite honest with you, why this is a ratification, it's probably a split issue between Even Stevens not having a point person that did all of their permits and contracts together. They had 5 different people in charge, and part of it was us. As you know, this division's a little new to me, and this is, I think, number 147 that I've learned that we don't do exactly correctly. So we will be changing this current contract. As you see at the top, it says private event license. We have a public event license also. So this is actually not the contract that it should have been on. That's what gave us a few of the stumbling blocks. And we will be visiting that as well as the percentages for food and beverage and how that's worded in our contract with Chris, because we actually have 3 different versions of that wording between Golden Spike and ourselves. So we will clean that up a little bit, but I do think as far as the community was concerned, it was a great event. It supported 3 charities, and the music was excellent, and minimal damage to the park with 3,000 people, and that's exceptional. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just, since the event, have they talked about perpetuating it?
Yeah, they actually talked about, their president was there. And so by about 7 o'clock on Saturday, he was talking about the future and how to do things better. And they hired a person 3 days before that will be their new community person. So I was there from 7 in the morning till 11 at night. We walked the grounds.
some of the suggestions we had. We asked them to come to OFOAM and see how they did it. Not that any one event's perfect, but where to set up food, how to flow traffic in and out, pinch points for security checks. They did a tremendous job not knowing what they were doing, and it will only get better. But their hope is to do this again next year and keep this their northern Utah venue for their community activities. So.
Todd, you're doing a tremendous job, and you know what you're doing. And I might also point out to the public that Observatory Park, the things you've done there, the labeling, the community efforts, the volunteer hours, the signage, the front, the entryway, it's just phenomenal. For those who have not been or haven't been there recently, the entrance to the old landfill off of B like Bravo,
A Avenue.
A Avenue like Alpha, going south from 24th Street. It's phenomenal up there, Todd. Terrific job. So,
And we will do a public opening in the next month. Jared Anderson will be doing some rock work at the bottom of that entrance, and we have a pavilion that will be going up in the next month right next to it, and some sprinkler system and some grass and some signage for the trails and the cyclocross park, and that includes some rock work on the E Avenue walking entrance also. But with that and the archery course that's in progress, I think it will be a nice addition to the community.
you've done a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibson?
Nothing to add.
I would just add really quickly that what I appreciate, Mr. Ferrario, is that you're not afraid to fail. That when you have events and you see an area that needs to be addressed, there's no hiding it. It's this is the areas we need to address, and it's moved forward and addressed. And we continue to have events that push the county forward. So I hope you feel empowered to continue to follow your vision. And we know that you're committed, and most of all, I truly appreciate that you put a jacket on today.
I did.
You look pretty marvelous. So,
And I would like to extend that to the staff, because we did do a reorganization, and they took on some new jobs, and I told them this summer's going to be tough, and it has been. So
and we
kudos to them.
we didn't even talk about the flooding that you were knee deep in, and so all that great work. So thank you very much, sir. With no further questions, I'm open for a motion.
I move that we approve the contract or ratify the contract between Weber County and Even Stevens for the rental of Fort Buenaventura Park for Givestock.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Absolutely, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number six is a request for approval of interlocal agreement by and between Weber County and the following animal control services: Far West City, Uinta City, Plain City, Marriott, Slaterville City, and Hooper City. Ashley, pleasure to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're just seeking approval for extended contracts for animal control between Weber and those following cities.
Questions, commissioners?
None. Good job, Ashley.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You feel comfortable here.
I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Something people take for granted a lot when they don't need it. So we appreciate your effort.
We'd also like to extend a note of gratitude during the fire. One of the things the individuals truly cherish and have great concern is their animals. Animal Services did send over a mobile unit to the D Event Center to deal with any issues that people had with their animals. They could take them there, they could store them there. If there were animals lost, they knew where to go. It was a tremendous asset to have that on site. Utilization was a little bit low, but that's because I think a lot of folks had time to evacuate. But that being said, it is still a tremendous resource that we had on site, and people were tremendously appreciative. So thank you very much.
Scott, please commend Scott for the good work he did up there. He had that thing ready to go by noon, 1 o'clock. It
Yeah.
happened so quickly. It was just
He was on top of it.
It was tremendous, and that's just another small story that, may not ever get told, but to have just another asset available for people who are already experiencing a high level of stress was awesome.
I'll tell him. Yeah.
Big animals, small animals, that was appreciated. We had people walking down the road with their horses and things, so great work done. So any further discussion or questions, commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreements between Weber County and Far West, Uinta, Plain City, Marriott, Slaterville, and Hooper City.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 7, request for approval of a resolution of the County Commissioners of Weber County appointing members to the Western Weber Park District. Stacy Skeen. Thank you, Stacy.
Good morning. I'm here to present our request for approval of a resolution to appoint members to the Western Weber Park District. It's a newly created district, and the notices were posted according to state statute. There are 5 positions, and they'll be 4-year terms, with the exception of the first appointment. 2 positions will be 2-year, and 3 positions will be 4-year. And there were 9 applicants. You have copies of those.
Thank you for all the work on this. It's a tremendous amount of work that's been put in by yourself, also by Commissioner Gibson, over a long extended period of time to address an issue that we have out in that general area. Bringing a unified vision, I think, is extremely important. Commissioner Gibson, any thoughts?
Just to add that I think I'm grateful to see this going forward. It has been a long time coming, and it's a good opportunity, I think, for these areas in the unincorporated area to work together towards a common goal. I think one of the temptations that we all have at times is to kind of segregate into our own little worlds, and there are at least 3 communities here that tend to see themselves as a little bit of a different community, but yet they are very small on their own, and this gives them an opportunity to work together towards something and something that's important to them. And so I'm looking forward to that spirit of cooperation moving forward in the future, and look forward to see that happen. So.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for the work on this. I know it's come before the commission on several different occasions, looking for different routes to move it forward, and I think a tremendous amount of thoughts and work's been put into this. The purpose of this is to create a board. So do we have any recommendations for who we could appoint to this board?
I'd like to jump in and say that it would probably be good, especially because of the temperature out in the west, that we have representation from the commission on that board, and then we have representation from those specific areas. And so, as we discussed today, the 9 applicants that are in our packet today, I have some thoughts and ideas, but I'll wait for suggestions and then chime in at the end.
Feel free to share them. I don't really have any. I have some information on all of the applicants, but if you have something you want to throw out there, go ahead and I'll follow up.
As I went over that, the great thing about that area out there is we have 9 people who are willing to serve in 5 positions. I so appreciate people who are willing to give of their time. And so, following up on my first comment, I think it's out west. I think Commissioner Gibson, if you'd be willing to serve on that board, that would be a suggestion I have, because you're more familiar with that. If it were south, I think that would be probably more mine, Central James, but I think that would be good for you. As far as qualifications, I'm impressed with the Kathleen Vernew that's on there, and also Heather Marriott, but also I know Jimmy Wayment. Am I not loud enough? Sorry. Jimmy Wayment, and then also in the Taylor area, Dwayne Hanson, but those would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Those would be my 5 picks, but I'd be open up, and there's some other ones on there too. There's another Wayment that I really liked, and there was another Gibson that looked really good out there, and then there was a Fowers, and that's good stock out there too, but I'm not too familiar. So I'm just talking freely here. So, but those would be my picks as I outlined.
And I will just say that I think those certainly make sense. As I talked with our elections director, he said, make sure that you don't leave the impression that each of those communities is entitled to a seat, because that makes it, you know, run into problem with the concept of one man, one vote type thing. But that being said, I think it's wise to have geographic diversity to the extent as possible. And I think that those picks show that. There's the way that you have explained it, there would be one from the community of Taylor, one from, or let's see, two from West Weber, two from Warren.
That's how I saw it on those. I was trying to pick that out when I was looking at that.
So, and I echo what you said before. I know all these individuals, every one of them, and any of them would be qualified and able and obviously willing to serve, or they wouldn't have put in an application. And I think, and especially with those recommendations that you made, that means that we would not be appointing Mr. Fowers and Mr. Heslop. I just want to mention to them, you know, in a public forum, it was those two, along with Kathy Bernew, who really drove this process forward in the community of creating this district. And for what it's worth, I want you to know that I have talked with all of them, and Mr. Fowers and Mr. Heslop are happy to serve, but they're not going to feel any type of ill will or disappointment. They pushed this forward because they thought it was the right thing to do, and not because they thought that it was a, you know, something that they needed to serve on a board or something like that. So they're happy to serve in another way, and they're comfortable with.
And I'm not dead set on any of these, Commissioner. I'm just, these are just on paper, and
No,
I only know a couple of them that are on there, but that's just as they represented themselves via their application. That's all I can go for the most part.
So are we comfortable with the names on the list?
I am, and honestly, the only reason I brought it up is to let you know that these are all individuals who are happy to serve in whatever capacity we ask, and they're all going to be good with whatever the outcome is. And so, okay. I'm as you laid those out, Commissioner, I'm happy with all. I'm comfortable with those recommendations.
So we have 5 names listed: Mr. Kerry Gibson, Ms. Kathleen Vernau. Did I say that correct? Vernew. I apologize. Heather Marriott, Jimmy Wayment, and Dwayne Hanson. Do I have a second to those names?
Commissioners, just prior to that though, in looking at the statute, I'm not sure at the moment whether a county representative of the legislative body can actually serve on the board if you receive qualified applications from other qualified residents.
Let me clarify that. I think that's if I didn't live in the district, and I did submit an application.
If you do live in the district, then you are qualified. Yes.
Exactly. So that's how that fits.
Okay, so I have a motion. I'm sorry, did I have a second? We had a second?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And before we vote on that, I just, because we'll vote on the resolution, you want to explain this process, or would you like me to?
I'd like to just so
It's okay. I got the process. So, do we have any further discussion on the resolution?
I do. Mr. Crockett, I was looking for commission or legislative representation. You're telling me no, but by virtue that Commissioner Gibson lives in the area.
Right, he would be separately qualified under the statute to serve as a board member on the Park District.
Okay, so my thinking is a little bit but it still works out by virtue of his residence.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Are we comfortable?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain that so that we don't vote twice under the statute in this particular case, because it's the first time, we don't appoint
terms.
The length of the terms. That is by statute delineated, that we draw lots, or that someone draw lots either at the first meeting or here at this meeting. That's what Mr. Barron just told us.
Approximately half will have to be drawn by lots, so it would be 2 in this instance, and they will serve 2-year terms. The remainder will serve 4-year terms.
So, at some point, I guess we vote on the resolution. Is that it? And then draw lots.
Correct.
Right, you pick the 5 and then draw the lots
to vote on the names. then once we have the names, we'll draw the 2 lots for the 2-year, and then the rest will be 4-year. Any further discussion for clarification?
No.
No? Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't have any, I don't.
Okay, Fatima, would you pull
35.
resolution number 35? Would you poll us for the resolution?
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
And Chair Ebert?
Aye, it passes. Okay, Commissioner Gibson, excuse me, I'll have Commissioner Harvey draw. We just need 2 names. If you would draw 2 names for the 2-year terms. And just 2, and the rest will be 4 years. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
The 2-year terms, as I've drawn, would be Jim Weymouth and Heather Marriott. The other 3 candidates will be 4-year terms.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you for all the work, Commissioner Gibson. Thank you for having the intestinal fortitude to continue to move this forward and for clarification points. All right, wonderful. We'll move on to item number 2. It is not an actionable item. It is for clarification and answer questions. So item number 2 is a request for consideration on an application to vacate the retention basin easement on lots 4, 5, and 6 and 14 of Mallard Springs subdivision at approximately 2475 South 400 West. Rhonda Kippen will be presenting. The reason that it is just a discussion item today is this needs to go for public comment, which we will set for next week. But we wanted to have an opportunity to have some public discussion so those individuals that were here today can have an opportunity for public comment if they can't make it next week. Rhonda.
Correct. Thank you, Commissioner Ebert, and good morning.
Morning.
So it's important, the 2 words that could be left out of something, how it changes everything. So thank you for moving this on the agenda item. What we are looking at is a vacation of a retention basin that is located in Mallard Springs subdivision. Mallard Springs subdivision was recorded in December 2015. It's a 21-lot subdivision. On 4 of the lots, there was actually a retention basin located along the rear of these lots. When they went and started to excavate and do the improvements for these retention basins, they filled with water. There's a high groundwater issue at that subdivision. And so basically that just became a nuisance where it was filled with water. They weren't draining and doing what they were designed to do. And so the engineering division has been working with the applicant to relocate this stormwater facility, and we have been able to adequately address a new location for it and construct that new detention basin. And so it was currently located on lots 4, 5, 6, and 14 in the Mallard Springs subdivision. The new detention basin will be located within Cameron Cove subdivision. The applicant had chosen not to do this via subdivision amendment to remove the detention basins because a lot of the lots had sold. So we're just doing it via ordinance. One of the conditions that needs to be addressed prior to us recording the ordinance is that all of the applicable easements get put in place so that the storm water can be relocated to the Cameron Cove subdivision. And then it will actually be released into the stormwater at a gradual rate, into the community stormwater at a gradual rate. So the applicant had actually made application last spring to do this, but we weren't willing to move this application further until the new detention basin had been installed. The detention basin has been designed and installed, and based on the fact that the other retention basins were more of a nuisance than what they were supposed to be providing a service for, we feel that it is the good cause exists for vacating the existing retention basins and relocating the new detention basin to the applicable area. And so based on that kind of gives you the groundwork of what we'll be finishing up with next week. And hopefully that explains anybody that is here regarding the notices that did go out. It did get noticed in the paper, and mailers went out to all residents within 500 feet. It was put in the local or the state and county website also for a public hearing, so there may be people here. The one and only condition that staff has is that all necessary easements for the new location of the detention basin located in Cameron Cove subdivision, which is a new subdivision that is not quite ready to record yet, must be recorded prior to recording the ordinance to vacate the storm drain retention basin easements that are currently located within Mallard Springs. Any questions?
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Harvey?
I don't have any.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Rhonda, and I guess we'll see you in a week.
See you in a week.
Thank you. Now's the time for public comment. If you were here for item number 2 and you have a question or concern, now's a good time to come up and express what your thoughts are on the retention change. Okay, or any other public comment is welcome. Okay, seeing none, we can move on to item H. Chris, do we have a need for a closed meeting to discuss exchange of real property?
Not that I'm aware of.
Sean?
He's stepped out for a moment. So let's, I can reach out to him really quick.
Okay. You know, can we
Pause and. Oh. He doesn't know we're talking about him, does he?
You may. John, do we have a need for a closed meeting for exchange of real property still?
We do, yes.
Okay, I'm open for a motion.
So move.
You got to state it on the.
I state that we move into closed session to discuss real property.
I'll second.
Motion in a second.
Roll call. Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Chair Ebert?
Aye. We'll enter into this closed meeting and we'll return, hopefully fairly quickly. Stay tuned.
souls here today. Yeah. They're still dedicated. So, well, we don't really need.
No.
We've come back from our closed meeting and no action to be taken. I'll move to aye.
I'll move that we adjourn.
I will second that. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. We have an RDA